There we go. Okay, brilliant. Sorry about that. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry about that. There was a tiny bit of audio issues. Thank you everybody for joining. The aim of this call is obviously just to give everybody an intro to Tines, to what we're doing, to our product roadmap, and hopefully give you a little bit of an insight as to how easy it is to build things in Tines. I want to get the elephant in the room out of the way as much as, or as early as possible. We did have a Series B. We did raise some money recently. What are we going to do with it? We're going to double down on our product roadmap and hire more people. So if you're looking for a job and that's why you're here, you're welcome. And we will be hiring a bunch of people. We've got a whole load of really exciting things in our product roadmap that I'll be talking about as we go through. One that we just published, or we just released today, global credentials and resources. So now you can share your credentials and resources across your entire teams in Tines. And we'll be launching it, making it a little bit easier for users in the platform using what we call no code mode, and to build without having to use any code at all. We've got reporting and dashboarding coming next quarter, and we've got improved onboarding and sample stories coming later on in the year, which is really exciting. But I'll be talking about all of that as we go through. What I want to do today is I want to give you a little bit of an introduction to Tines, to where we came from, because I think that's what a lot of people had requested and asked questions about. And then we'll dive into, I suppose, building a little bit of a Slackbot and building in Tines to see what that's like. So Tines, I think, as most of you know, is a security automation platform that allows security and IT and pretty much every team to automate their repetitive manual tasks. It came about when myself and my co-founder Owen were working in various different enterprise security teams. When we were working in those enterprise security teams, we noticed a lot of different problems. So my background, I did spend 10 years working in information security. This is when I was working in DocuSign. When I was running a security team, we grew that team from 2 to about 30 people. We noticed several different problems. One of those problems was there's just too much work. So if you're, and I suspect many of you are, if you're a security analyst and you are dealing with alerts from your SIEM or dealing with endpoint alerts, it's really, really hard to keep on top of them. I love this stat that 79% of security teams are overwhelmed with the volume of alerts. The main reason I love that stat is I just don't know those other 21% that are like on top of absolutely everything and really happy with where they're going. And the other part about that is that there's just a high false positive rate that's causing fatigue. And this is exacerbated by the fact that there's a whole lot of tools that don't really talk to each other really easily, which makes it really hard. The second part about this challenge is that there's just not enough staff in information security right now. Again, I'm sure everybody on the call knows this, but it's really hard to attract and retain staff. And if you've got staff that are responding to EDR alerts or adware alerts day in, day out, or analyzing phishing emails day in, day out, or contacting users saying, hey, do you remember logging in from this IP day in, day out? That's not something where they're learning, and it's not something that where you're getting the most value out of them, which is probably investigating more higher severity issues or building higher fidelity detections or threat hunting or things like that as well. The third part about this is the sense of inevitability around incidents. This is one of the reasons we really tried to we created Tines. Tines is a security company, and we're not going to tell you the same thing that a lot of security companies tell you, which is that we, stop all breaches, or we are that silver bullet. Tines is an automation platform that will improve your processes, but it is inevitable that a lot of companies out there have been breached or will be breached in the future. The challenge so much isn't preventing that. That is obviously a challenge, but that's not why we're pitching Tines. The challenge that we're pitching Tines here is that when those incidents come about, it's impossible to stay on top of everything else. So if you have a process to analyze adware, you've got a process to analyze suspicious logins or to respond to phishing emails. When that severity 1 incident comes along, and my team and we've been involved in plenty, it's impossible to spend your time analyzing that P1 incident where it's all hands on deck and maybe you have a 24-hour bridge, and at the same time investigate those alerts that you'd be normally like 100% flat out investigating. So there's a whole load of answers to those questions. There's a whole load of ways of solving them. One way is you can just invest in more staff. So you can hire more people. Another way is you can like outsource a lot of the problem to an MSSP or something like that. Another way that you can like solve the problem, it's not the only way of solving the problem, but I think that's probably why you're here, is that you can build security automation. You can use automation to solve a lot of that problem. And that's why we started Tines. So Tines is 3 years old last month. And it's designed to allow analysts and those people on the front line to automate any repetitive manual task. It's also designed from the ground up to integrate with any external system, and we're 100% vendor agnostic. I think a lot of you will have come to this webinar not really knowing the differences between Tines and the other automation platforms out there. And there are a lot, and some of them do a fine job. And some people do get value out of them, but Tines were a little bit different, and obviously we think we're better than all of those, and that's why we started the company. But the way we're different is 3 key things. One, we're laser focused on workflow automation. So Tines is an automation platform that does not have a case management system built in. It does not have a threat intel function built in. There's no ticket management system built in. We don't think that you can be a jack of all trades. If you are a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. We don't think that you need another Slack or another case management system. Most companies out there will have something that that does a pretty good job at that. And frankly, we don't want to build another Jira or anything like that. The second part about Tines is that we are extremely user friendly. So our second hire as a company was a designer. We have I think it's almost a 2-to-1 ratio of engineers to designers right now. So we are designing and we are building a platform that's supposed to be really, really easy to use, not just by engineers who are going to be able to use the platform themselves, but also by those people on the front line. So by analysts. So you don't need to be a developer in order to use Tines. The way we do that is we're super flexible. So instead of learning to write Python or instead of learning to write code, we'll give you a number of building blocks, and using those building blocks, you're going to be able to automate any repetitive workflow or any manual workflow. And you can be, with a little bit of training, as effective as a senior software engineer. We firmly believe that those people that are on the front line, those analysts, and those people that are responding to those tickets, responding to those alerts, or processing those vulnerability management reports, onboarding or offboarding users, they're the people that should be automating, and they're the people that will know the automation process cold. And they're the people that will be able to build a much higher fidelity story. So Tines is just focused on workflow automation. We make it super easy for anybody to do that. I'll skip over 1 or 2 slides here. And what do we automate? We like a lot of different workflows, to be honest. The question that we always ask is, where are security teams spending the most time? And that's what they should automate first. So it doesn't make sense to automate a process that you're not spending a lot of time on. But when we ask that question to security teams, they'll usually answer one of these 9 or 10 areas. So one of the first ones is phishing, where they will spend a lot of time analyzing and responding to emails reported to an abuse inbox. Another is endpoint alerts, your CrowdStrike, your SentinelOne, your Carbon Black, etc. Detecting live off the land tool use, adware, malware, etc., etc. Another one is suspicious logins. That's really what we're going to be talking about today, is suspicious logins and SIM alerts, and how to process those and how you can process those a little bit more easily and create more high fidelity detections and really accelerate your response to those. Other use cases that we see come up all the time, DLP triage. So that could be the likes of somebody keeping making a Google file public, or maybe their AWS, or maybe an S3 repo is made public or something like that. Onboarding or offboarding users, processing the likes of your Nessus or your Qualys scans, enriching all tickets with information, recording shift handover, etc. I do want to just name check a couple of really incredible customers that we have, the likes of Auth0, McKesson, Box, OpenTable, Databricks, and Sophos, obviously the security company, and obviously big congrats to Coinbase today. I hope they will have gone public in the last couple of days, but some really incredible security teams. We've got companies that are from all the way to like 10-person startups all the way to McKesson, who have 150,000 people in their security team. Okay, so I've made some bold claims there earlier, that Tines is agnostic as to the tools that you're connecting with. I do want to get into a demo, but before getting into the demo, it's important to know just how Tines operates. And the core principles behind Tines, the power behind Tines, is what we call the action event architecture, the actions event architecture. And what that means is that there's really only 3 things that you need to, concepts that you need to know in Tines. And if you learn those concepts and then master these concepts, you're going to be able to automate anything. Those three concepts are actions, events, and stories. So actions are what we call the building blocks of your automation stories. So what we'll encourage you to do when you start automating is you'll take a manual process and you'll define the manual steps or the manual actions that you'll take as part of that process. So maybe it's reading a phishing email where you read an email, you extract out the links, you check each of those links in buyer's total. Each of those actions translates to an individual action in Tines. So actions go to actions. There are only 7 action types in Tines, 7 atomic building blocks. And each of those actions that you take manually, you'll be able to perform using one of those 7 actions in Tines. That's what makes it so easy to use for anybody that hasn't come across the platform before. So an action could be, creating a ticket in your case management system, reading an email, extracting URLs, etc. When an action runs, it emits an event. So an event will be, if you've created a ticket, if your action is creating a ticket, it will be the ID of the ticket that was created. It could be a structured representation of the body or of an email. It could be an array of URLs that have been extracted, etc. So an action runs, it emits an event, and it passes it on to the next action in the story. So a story is our version of a playbook, a run book, an SOP. It's our workflow. We have pre-configured workflows that we can share for a whole lot of different automation stories, and a whole lot of different use cases like these. However, the power of Tines is that you personally will be building up automation stories that more accurately fit your workflow and more accurately fit the risk profile and risk tolerance of your company, and integrate with all the tools that you want to integrate with. Okay, I'm going to now dive into a demo. So the demo that we wanted to talk about today was around like creating a Slackbot, but more importantly around responding to alerts from your SIM, or responding to alerts from an unusual event that happens. So to kind of like talk about a scenario or talk about a story that this would happen. So this, like, all the time people will like be logging in from, maybe it's like an impossible time traveler alert from 2 locations over a short period of time. Or maybe they've added a second factor to their Okta account, which they want to investigate. Or maybe they've just VPN'd in from a location on a device that they've never logged in on before. This is a pretty common security alert that gets triggered from your SIM or triggered from other tools all the time. One of the things we believe in Tines is that process should be automated, but that you can crowdsource a lot of activity. So by contacting a user on Slack or on Microsoft Teams, you can basically automate a lot of that process away, and you can create much higher fidelity alerts. And that's what this story is going to look at. So it's going to be receiving an alert, enriching it in some way, contacting a user on Slack, and after you've contacted that user on Slack, we'll be able to take an action and maybe escalate that, maybe isolate a machine, or maybe just close out the ticket straight away. So that's the kind of use case that most people, that a lot of our customers will implement very, very early on in their automation processes. In this example, what I want to show you here is this is one of these stories. I built this one earlier, but we'll actually be building this in person now in a couple of minutes from scratch. What you have here in Tines, when you log in, you'll be presented with this. This is what we call the storyboard. So I said earlier, there's only 7 actions in Tines. The 7 actions are these 7 action types, and you can configure these 7 action types over here on the right-hand side in this properties panel. But the way the storyboard works is you basically just drag an action on, connect it up to another action in the story, and then you're able to configure it over here. It's really simple. You can select multiple actions at the same time. You can move them around. You can delete, you can undo, etc. You can copy paste, all that sort of stuff really, really easily. So here, if you imagine the different actions over here, these colors represent the different action types. And this story, what you can see is it's receiving, there's a webhook action up here. It's receiving an event. We're deduplicating the event. And then we are enriching the IP address in 1 or 2 different sources. We're creating an issue in Jira. We're searching for the user on Slack. We're then checking if they click the link. We're updating our Jira ticket, and we're closing the ticket. I'll go through that again in a second. But basically, that's the flow I talked about earlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to receive an alert. We're going to deduplicate it. We're going to enrich it. We're going to contact the user on Slack about it. And after we've contacted the user on Slack, depending on their response, we'll take 1 or 2 more actions. What I want to do before kind of diving into building this, I want to just run through one or two of these actions to show you how they're configured. So I said earlier, there's only 7 action types. Those 7 action types are over here. You'll hear me repeating that throughout the entire webinar. These 7 action types are these: webhook, IMAP, email, HTTP request, trigger, event transformation, and send to story. The very first action type that I want to look at here is this webhook action. And if you're able to, you're going to be able to use this webhook action to receive events from a lot of different sources. The way this webhook works is you drag it onto the storyboard, you'll get a unique URL, and this unique URL can be configured to receive events from a lot of different sources really easily. So from the likes of a Slack or an Okta or a SIM, maybe it's Splunk, maybe it's Panther, or maybe you want to kick off something manually using curl or something like that. This URL, it's simple as dragging on. It's unique to this webhook, and you can send data to it really easily. So I'm just going to put in, I'm going to move this to the bottom. Does that work? No, yeah, to bottom, brilliant. So I go name, name equals Thomas and company equals Tynes. When I click that webhook will have received that event, and now this event can be processed in Tynes. Very, very simple. The way an action run, or the way a story runs, I said earlier, is a webhook or an action emits an event and it passes it along through the next action to the next action in the story. I'm going to delete, or I'm just going to emit this event here, and maybe you can see the numbers running up. If I re-emit this event, you'll see the numbers going up through this story. And you can see that the action has been emitted from this event and passed down to the next agents or the next actions in the story. So that's our first action, is this webhook action. It just sits there, it receives events from any other source, and it's a really easy way of like receiving and kicking off a story in Tynes. It's not the only way of kicking off a story in Tynes though. You can read an email using this IMAP action if you wanted. So you'd configure this over here to read an email from any IMAP server, and you can settle on a schedule. So you can run on a cron schedule or repeat every minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And based on your configuration here, you'll be able to receive an event from, or check an email and kick off an event and process a suspicious email that was reported to your abuse inbox or something like that. The next type of action that I want to talk about is this event transformation action. So this event transformation action here allows you to modify the contents of incoming events. I'm going to view this in our docs page just to show you. So you can extract data, explode, deduplicate, delay or implode, or reformat and add a message. So basically, you're able to modify events as they come in really easily. And what I'm doing here is I'm deduplicating an event for a period of 3,600 seconds against multiple parameters. I'm then going to enrich, I'm going to use this HTTP request action to enrich this data. What am I enriching? It's a great question. Let me show you how to show you what I'm actually taking, and get data in here so that we can explain a little bit more how this HTTP request action works. One more concept in Tynes is this concept of a form. A form is another way of sending data to a webhook to kick off a story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate an alert from my SIM. I'm going to take this IP address. And I am going to go, today is the 14th of the 4th, 2021. And I'm going to pretend there's a login from an iPhone. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically simulating a suspicious alert from my SIM that the user Thomas at Tynes.io logged in on a suspicious IP address on the state using an iPhone. So when this kicks off, it's going to receive the event in the webhook. We're going to deduplicate that. It's not a duplicate. And then we're going to pass it through to this HTTP request action. To look at what this event looks like though, first is the webhook action has received that event. So you can see the user email address is Thomas, the IP address is this, date is this, and device is the iPhone. Okay, so now that we have data in Tynes and we know how to receive it and we know that we can like transform it in some ways, The next step is usually to enrich or to interact with another tool. And the way we'll do that is using this HTTP request action. The HTTP request action, it works similar to curl or to Postman. It allows you to interact with any tool, but most importantly, you don't have to write code in order to do it. So here, what I'm doing is I'm making a really simple GET request using the content type JSON to a URL. But what I'm doing is I'm passing through a parameter. You can see these curly brackets here in the slightly different shade of pink. You can see that I'm passing through data dynamically that's at the JSON path webhook agent.body.ip address. So what happens here is I have an event that has an IP address called webhook agent.body.ip address here, 98.249.227.120. And in gray noise, I'm able to check that against the gray noise API. Gray noise, for those unfamiliar, it's a threat intel platform that's really, really good at kind of mostly getting rid of noise, actually. So mostly saying this is probably just a generic scanner, but it's good at telling good from bad. We're big fans of the tool. So here, what it's doing is it's checking. And I can see that when it checked against gray noise, it told me that that IP address is noise. It is known as malicious, and it's got a link, and it was last seen today, which is interesting. The next thing I've done is I've used this HTTP request action to look up the IP address in another tool. This is just another really simple tool called ipapi.com, and we're doing the same sort of thing. In this case, we're making a post request. We're checking the IP address to see where it is. And when I ran that, or when this story ran, you can see that that IP address is located in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, at a particular lat long. And then the next thing I'm doing is I'm creating an issue in Jira. So this HTTP request action, I think you can see it's super, super flexible. When you drag it on, you're going to be able to edit over here all of the information. So I can go https://io.atlassian.net. And if I format this the correct way over here, I'll actually be able to build a really easy way of creating a ticket in our case management system or interacting with any other tool out there. We have these templates for about 100 different tools, for 1,500 different actions that you might want to take. But Tines is completely agnostic as to the actions that you want to take. So if you have your own homegrown API, or if you have like a specific endpoint that you're particularly fond of in CrowdStrike or something like that, Tines is going to be able to connect with that really easily. Here, what you can see is I'm connecting to the Tines.io, just the Jira API, and I'm creating a task in the project demo. And that task just has some really simple information. We detected a new suspicious login to O365 and Splunk. So I'm just simulating that. And what that's done is, if I look it up, it's created an issue, demo 3994. And if I look at this in Jira, Atlassian.net, I hope, oh, that didn't work. You go to, let's try again, tinesio.atlassian.net. And go here. There's a nice example of you can create a nice pretty ticket. So here you go. I've created a nice ticket, new suspicious logins, email thomas@times.io, user agent iPhone, login date, etc., etc. And the way I've done that is I've passed through all of that information. You can see it here dynamically using the JSON path that I kind of mentioned earlier. Okay, so to take it just a tiny bit of a step back and talk where we're at the moment, what we now have is we've got an alert. And that alert isn't necessarily super high fidelity. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to use Tines to enrich it, to deduplicate and then enrich against multiple different sources. So we've already done that. We've received the alert using our webhook from a particular tool. We've deduplicated, and then we've enriched using gray noise, and we've enriched using this ipapi.com. And now we've created a ticket for our analysts to investigate in Jira. The next step that somebody might want to do then for any alert like this is kind of what we had, the premise of the webinar, is to contact a user and ask them about it. So in Tines, there's two ways of, well, there's loads of ways of contacting users. There's one way that you can use, which is just send an email. And if you wanted to send an email, you can just drag an email action on, connect it up, and you can really easily use this JSON autocomplete to find out the email of the user that you want to send it to. So I know that we looked at it up earlier, webhook action.body.ip User email address is the user email that the user that I want to contact. So you can use this autocomplete to easily build. I can just say, hey, hi, we saw a suspicious login. Maybe that's going to be in the body, etc. That didn't work. I don't know what's going on there. But here anyway, you can see what we're doing is we're able to contact the user by email, and we're able to send them a really nice email, which will look something like this. I just received it a minute or two ago. Two suspicious login detected. Thomas at Times.io. Hi, we detected a new suspicious login. You've got the IP address. You've got that it was like iPhone Florida. You've got that it's the iPhone 12, and then you've got these actions that you can take, which is cool. The other way that you could do this is you could contact the user on Slack. Now, Slack has a really rich API that allows you to interact with a whole lot of different tools. And the way that you can interact with Slack is the first thing that you have to do is you have to search for that user. So we've got templates for a lot of different actions over here on the left-hand side. Yeah, you can see creating a new Slack channel, posting a message, searching for messages, files, posts, etc. But you can also do this search user by email in Slack. You can see that this is using another one of those HTTP request actions. And when I drag it on over here, you can see I am using some headers. So I'm passing through a credential Slack, which I already have saved in Times. And then the only thing it needs is this email address. I'm going to delete that there. You can see in Times, what I've done is, or in this story, what I've done is I have specified that email address to be webhook action body user email address. So to be that email address from the webhook that I received earlier. What that means is when Times looks it up, and it's done this automatically, it will search for that user, Thomas at Times.io, and you can see it's returned back a user ID, which is just a generic user ID, or just a just a user ID. We can then use that in the next action, which is sending me a Slack message by DM. We pass through that user ID as the channel, and then we send a nice rich notification to me. The way you define these rich notifications, let me show you what this looks like, is put this over here. And this fired twice or three times, so I'm going to delete that one. So here you can see we detected an unusual login, location Fort Lauderdale, United States, gray noise for reputation was malicious, the date was 2021-04-14, and the IP address is 98.249.227.120. The way you define these blocks is using what's known as the Slack block kit builder. So I'll show you what that looks like as well. So Slack will actually give you a really nice configuration for building these. And if you look in Times, all I've done really is copied some configuration from the block kit builder and passed through some information about the data that I've got. Okay, what I want to do is just really quickly just talk you through exactly building all these. I hope this kind of makes sense so far, but just how easy it is to build this from scratch, so that if you wanted to follow on, you could kind of do it yourself. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a webhook in another story. This is a webhook from Okta, and I'm basically just going to be repeating myself for some of this, just so you can see it. But this is it's a nice example of just how quickly you can build in Times, I suppose. So in Times we have, or I've set up this webhook, and this webhook allows Okta basically to receive, or Okta to send data. I'll go to Okta. Where's that? Here. Okay, I won't go to Okta then. All right, yeah, I'll go in a second. But basically, it allows Okta to send data to Times when it detects certain actions. One of those actions that it can detect is the action that was detected, or that was used to it is adding a second factor authentication. So that's been used to detect several really high profile incidents recently. I'm sure some of you guys know what I'm talking about. So the action here is, I'm just trying to get to Okta here, in Google Authenticator or Okta Verify. Need 2 seconds just to pull this out. Okta Verify is 569-378. 569-378. Verify. 5020-247. Brilliant here. So is here, you can specify in Okta to set an event hook so that when, for example, a user's multi-factor authentication is activated or deactivated, it will send data to a webhook. And that's the webhook that I've specified here. So I simply copied this webhook in Tines, just copied that, pasted it into here. And what that does is every time a user's second factor is authenticated or activated, this will fire a webhook. So what I want to do is, this is actually, yeah, it's a reasonably high fidelity, it's not a high fidelity detection, but it's a reasonably interesting detection that every time a user's, a user does something like this, it's probably worth contacting the user and asking them for more information about it. That's what we're going to build here. So what I will do here is I'm going to go to my apps, my settings, and I'm going to edit my profile. I'm going to enter my password, and I'm going to remove that second factor from my account. And when I do that, what I hope is going to happen, this is a live demo, so if this doesn't work, you're going to forgive me. You've successfully removed it. I hope what's going to happen is, and it'll take a minute for this to come through, an event will fire something like this, which will say a Okta event hook, which will say a second or a factor has been removed from my account. In this case, this is one that that was activated. Here's one that another one was, I think, deactivated. Let me see here. These are all, yeah, so this is reset factor, for example. So this is an example of this firing. It can take a couple of minutes to fire. And we can use this to kick off an entire automation action. The information that you can see that Okta has sent us, though, it's actually really interesting. It's got the exact same information that I simulated. So it's got my IP address, it's got my user agent, it's got my details about my actor, so Thomas at Times.io. And I can actually take all this information and then contact a user on Slack or enrich something, enrich on Slack as well. So if I take a look here, this is just fired. You can see this event was received at 5:36. It's now 5:37. And we've already received this action in Times, and we can now automate the process related to it. So reset factor for user. So what I'm going to do here is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to enrich this. Actually, let me just show you here. There's actually some really cool information in here from Okta. Okta do a great job. So Okta do a really good job here of even giving you the geographical context. So Dublin, Leinster, Ireland, which is where I am. But I'm going to enrich this anyway with gray noise. So to do that, all I'm going to do is search gray noise over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to look up this IP in the gray noise community, drag on this action, connect it up. And when I look at the configuration, I can see that Times has said, okay, the only thing you need to edit is this IP address over here. And I'm going to go to the JSON or path through the JSON path, webhook action.body.events.first.client.IP address. And I'm going to check if that's malicious. So to do that, I'm going to re-emit here. Show. And you can see this classification is unknown. Okay, that's actually good. So in reality, if this came in and the classification was malicious, I'd probably want to do something immediately. So to do that, I'm going to use what this is called as a trigger action. So a trigger action is the second last type of action that I'm going to talk about today. And it allows you to compare the contents of incoming events with predefined rules. So I can see here, it allows you to compare the contents of event from incoming an incoming event with predefined rules, and when the rules match an event is triggered. And here I've got a regex or a not regex, a field less than value, a field greater than value. So I can do various different types of comparisons to see whether or not something matches. What I've done here then is I'm going to check basically if I'm going to use a regex, I'm going to see if this is malicious. OUS. I'm going to trigger if malicious. And I'm going to go look up IP and gray noise. .body .classification. And now the next time this fires, if that IP is detected as malicious, it will trigger here and I can take an action like maybe Okta, suspend the account in Okta or something like that. So let's go for here, suspend account in Okta. And if I've done this correctly, I would just pass through the Okta ID and this would immediately suspend the user's account in Okta. I'm not going to do that because this is not malicious, but that would be how you do it. Instead, what I can do is I can go trigger if benign, and I'll pass through whatever the configuration was. So I'm just going to look at the event, and the classification is unknown. So if it's unknown, the next time this fires, it'll be really simple. You can see this is fired, that it's benign. And now I can do the steps of contacting or searching for the user in Slack and contacting the user in Slack. So I'm just going to go search for user in Slack. So search user by email in Slack. And what I can do is I can pass through the email address from the alert. And again, that's just going to be at a JSON path, webhook action.body data.events.first actor and I think it's alternate ID. I've remembered this. In reality, what you'll probably do is when you're building, you'll probably put these events side by side and be able to refer to them. So you can see here data events. This is the first event in that array. You could even explode that array as well. And you can see here it's actor.alternate ID. Instead of doing that, yeah, I've just remembered it. And now when this runs, it's going to go here. And I have my ID in Slack that I can contact. I'm then going to go message user, Slack or Slack send work, Slack here, post message to a Slack channel, maybe post a message using a rich notification, go here, drag that in. I know that the channel that I want to send this message to is here. This search user by email body user ID. I'm going to use that as my channel here. You can see it's already actually filled out because we think that that's probably what you're going to do. And I filled out some information already here. We detected unusual login, but I want to pass through. Let's just like get one or two pieces of information here. So the data, the location that I want to log in is webhook action.body data.events.first client.geographical context.country, for example. The rest of the information I'll keep the same. Actually, maybe I'll just pass in this and put in, instead of geographical, the context.country, let's go for client.device. Let's just go for device. That's kind of fine. But if I take a tiny bit more time, what would happen is this would now go ahead and send me that message on Slack. And if I pop open Slack, it will, I hope, show me this message saying a login was detected. In this case, it's from Ireland. The user agent is computer. That wasn't what I was wanted, but you can see it was really easy to do that, and really easy to send that message. Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left, so I wanted to show you one or two more cool things that you can do with Slack, because I think that's what's really handy. The first thing that I want to show you though is that here I've looked up this IP in gray noise. There's one other action that I haven't shown you, and that's this send to story action. So in times, if you've built any automation stories, you've probably built a story to analyze an IP address, right? Because that's something that you'll do in a lot of different locations. So in that sense, you probably don't want to build out, every single time, look up an IP address in gray noise, look it up in ipapi.com, look it up in VirusTotal, etc. What you're going to do there is you're going to use what we call a send to story. So in times, stories are those playbooks, but you can have a story specifically for analyzing IP addresses, And then you could call that from any other story. To do that, I'm just going to drag on this STS analyze IP. This is what I created earlier. But basically, you will connect up. You'll have a story like this here, which is a story to perform all those actions that I kind of talked about earlier. And you just enable it for send a story. So you select an entry action and an exit action. And then I can call that from any other story that I want. So here, instead of looking up this IP in gray noise community, I'm just going to pass through that IP. So I'm just going to copy this IP address here. And then I pass this through here. And then the next time I get an alert from Okta, for example, I'm going to reemit. This is going to send that data to this send a story. And what this send a story is doing, you can see I'm doing like a whole load of different things. So I'm checking that IP in gray noise. I'm checking it in Tor. I'm checking it in Talos reputation. I'm checking it in virus total. And if I look at one of these, you can see that we've actually pulled back a lot of really, really interesting information here. So we pulled back, for example, in virus total that this IP is from Liberty Global. You've got your like last analysis results, which tells me that will tell me nobody said this was malicious. You've got your total votes, so nobody says it's harmless, nobody says it's malicious, etc. But all of this information, I'm also searching, for example, in Jira to see are there any cases, because a lot of the time your own threat intel sources are super. Your own sources are really, really useful piece of information to gather intel. It's just as important to check your own sources as it is to check others. So if you've got 3 cases related to an IP address before, chances are it's like probably legit. If they're, it could be your own office IP or something like that. But what's cool about this is if I use this STS analyze IP address, I'm now sending all that information back to this story, and it's all encapsulated in one really nice action or one really nice event here. So you can see the gray noise say it's unknown, Talos says it's scored, the location is Dublin, Ireland. You've got all that information from virus total. There were no Jira results and no Splunk results. And we did that all using just one action. Okay, the very last thing that I want to, well, 2 quick things that I want to talk about then, just before I finish up, and I'll have tons of time for questions as well, is how you can like kick off things from within Slack. So what I've been doing here is I've been demoing a few different things. So mostly I've been demoing in Slack. There's various different, let me go here, basic information. There's various different features. So you've got like incoming webhooks and slash commands and bots. We've mostly been doing like using bots or using like just the raw Slack API itself to interact with users. You can have different interactive components. So an interactive component is the button here that you would click in Slack. And you can do this with Tines, or you can do this in Slack, where when you click "This was me," it will pop up a question or pop up and ask you for more information. In Tines, we've got this concept of prompt. So if you click "This was me," this will, in this story, like continue down through the flow. It's not there. But in Slack, you can also kick off, I'll leave that there, go to Snowy Pond. You can also kick off interactive components. You can also kick off something using something like this, which will, I hope, fire in Slack. When you say "This was me," or "I don't recognize this," it will pop up and ask you for more information about it, which you can then use to populate your ticket, which is really nice as well. The other thing you can do, though, so that's like one example of those like really powerful pop-ups that are quite useful. The other thing you can do, though, is you can use Tines to process what are known as slash commands. So again, this is like the sort of thing that a bot can do really easily. But when you're in Slack, you may want to analyze an IP or analyze a domain or analyze a URL or something like that, or like isolate a user or anything like that. And a lot of the time, you'll see this in a lot of tools. They've got these slash commands where you can go, maybe it's something like GSD help, and it will pop up a box asking you for help. Or maybe it's like analyze a domain or analyze IP. Try that again. This IP. It didn't work. Yeah, analyze IP 83.141.10.11. Doesn't really matter. And when you do that, Tines can like receive the action and perform the event. The way this works is this is what's known as a slash command in Slack. I just recommend checking this out in Slack, but what this does is you specify a webhook in Tines to send that data to. So I've sent this data to this webhook in Tines. And if I go back to Tines, I go to stories, I go to create source logins, and I go to slash command. Tines has received that event just 1 minute ago. And you can take action based on that. So you can see here that I've sent through analyze IP. And basically from within Slack, we've kicked off our own automation story really easily. So this is sent through this IP address, but I've used the send a story that I just talked about 2 or 3 minutes ago to analyze that IP address and return the result back to Slack. So this sent a story, as I said, it's global, really easy to receive that event and then send it back to Slack. I'm just sending it back to when you receive that event from Slack. It gives you a response webhook URL, which is cool. And you're able to, use that webhook URL to say the IP address was found, the location is STS analyze IP.location. You can do whatever you want here. Let's say you want to say, gray noise reputation is .sts analyze IP .gray noise. And now the next time this story runs, it will respond back saying, the IP address is this, was found, location Zornhessen, gray noise reputation, you, et cetera, et cetera. So really, really powerful to do to run automation stories as well. I could spend a huge amount of time talking about Slack and the way some of our customers are using it. If you want to check out some blogs, Auth0 have some really, really useful and really great ones. But what I'm hoping to show you is that, like, within a couple of minutes in Tines, I know it's not a particularly detailed or particularly in-depth story, but within a couple of minutes in Tines, we've basically automated a process to contact or to receive an event from like Okta based on receiving an alert from a bunch of different tools. Receive that event in Tines, enrich it in 1 or 2 places, maybe create a ticket, and then interact with somebody on Slack. And the way we've done that is super simple, just using these 7 actions, and using those as building blocks to create a really simple way of getting higher fidelity alerts. That was pretty much what I wanted to show people today. Happy to take any questions. There's a bunch of different stuff that I can show you as well around this. But yeah, if you want to ask any questions, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat here. Hopefully they'll pop up. But we're also available on Slack all the time. So tines.io/Slack, you'll be able to sign up, and we're pretty responsive to any questions that you ask. If you want a more in-depth demo, you can go to just tines.com and book a demo. Click request a demo. You'll be able to book a demo with myself or somebody else on the Tines team. And then we've got a pretty good blog. So to get started with Slack, for example, setting up your credentials and things like that, it's actually really, really easy. It only takes 10 minutes if you've got the permissions. But there's a good blog on the tines.com/blog for creating a chatbot. That's a Slack chatbot. But anyway, what I really hope you've seen today is just how flexible Tines is, that it doesn't really matter if you're connected to Gray Noise or VirusTotal or any other tool out there. You should be able to build really quickly. And hopefully, this is will kickstart your imagination for some of the processes that you want to kick off. Okay, any questions there? I can see some questions. I can see some. I don't see any questions coming through. I can see some compliments coming through, which is nice. But anybody got any questions or anything they want me to dive in on? Okay, Roland says, great session, lots of great applications for Tines. You can use health and safety or quality assurance. Yeah, absolutely, Roland. So there's a lot of different use cases, and what we see Tines being used for right now, we see Tines being used obviously a lot in security, and we go very deep in security. But we do see, especially with Slackbots, to be honest, and with other applications, we see people the IT team be hold on a second, how is it that the security team have a chatbot that's really powerful, but yeah, how's the security team of a chatbot that's able to like onboard or offboard users from Okta, but we're not, you know, the IT team don't? Or how is it that the security team are able to like create tickets automatically in Jira from within Slack for all their customers, but the IT team don't? And then we'll see Tines move into the IT team because the IT team will want that. So we do see Tines being used in a lot of different areas, and we see it expanding pretty quickly, pretty powerfully. And then, yeah, so same question from Andrew. Yeah, we see Tines being used in a lot of different locations, not just IT. So some tech ops, some DevOps, some HR processes, but it's mostly organically at this point. We're not pushing Tines on any customer saying, hey, you have to expand to these use cases. It's that these customers, they'll see this Slack bot, or they'll see a Teams bot, or they'll see like a form. So you can have forms to like onboard or offboard users, or forms to you know, kick off like searches across tons of different tools. We'll see people do that, and then other teams will want to get it. But yeah, the HTTP request action is super, super flexible, and it allows you to interact with any tool really easily. And I've got a question from Dave Walker, which is it's a great question actually. Is there any way to run actions from within our private network? We're using an internal LDAP server. We'd love to have the same kind of integration you have with Okta. So Dave, yeah, Tines is available cloud or on-prem. On-prem is, we just give you a Docker image and you spin it up in your environment, and the requirements are really minimal. It's just a lightweight Linux host. You need an SMTP server and I think an SSL cert, and then you're going to be able to spin it up. And from there, within your environment, you're going to be able to hit any application that you want internally. There are a ton of applications out there. Excuse me. If you still wanted to use Tines Cloud, or you wanted to use the Tines Community Edition, you can sign up, and there's a bunch of different applications out there. Okta have there's like application gateways or proxies, or sometimes firewalls will allow you to route traffic through. And then there's tools like ngrok or Cloudflare or Argo that you can use to sit in your network, so that if you want the Community Edition to connect to your internal tools, you're going to be able to do it really easily. We don't like have a favorite method. It's going to depend on the risk tolerance and the profile of your IT team saying, yes, that's absolutely possible. And it's also going to depend on the tools that you want to connect to. But we've got a bunch of customers that are doing it in a few different ways that I'm happy to talk about. We've got a Notion doc that I can share with you as well if you want to ping me afterwards on Slack. Roland says, how is Tines licensed? Unlimited across multiple use cases, could be an enterprise-wide tool for diverse use cases. Great question. So right now, we're pretty transparent in our pricing. Right now, Tines.com, if you go to pricing, so we price based on actions. So the more complex your stories, the more you get charged. But you can see our Community Edition is like 100 actions and 1,000 events per day and 10 users. So you'd be able to build a process, 10 stories like this story or something like that. Or you'd be able to have like several, maybe like a reasonably complex phishing story, a guard duty story, a CrowdStrike story, and a Slackbot story using your Community Edition. We may change that pricing. So we've got some feedback that pricing, it's a little bit hard to estimate, a little bit hard to budget. So we may change that a little bit, but I don't want to preempt anything. What we're trying to do is we're optimizing for getting users, getting feedback, and like our pricing is a lot more flexible than some other folks. So if you got budget concerns, come to us, talk to us. But realistically, we know that you can get value out of Tines really quickly. We've got a lot of really passionate customers that we can put you in the direction of, and they'll speak to it. Yeah, we're very, very good value, and yeah, take advantage while you can. But yeah, the Community Edition is free. After that, we start at 250 actions is about $35,000 a year, and then on-prem costs a little bit more. Okay, probably got time for one more question if anybody asks. Yeah, if not, I should say, by the way, yeah, if you want me to share this story, more than happy to share it. I'll share it in the Slack afterwards, or you can ping us. And if you want me to share that interactive /command story as well, that's really popular. That's yeah, we can share that as well. Just ping us on Slack, and we're more than happy to help. Okay, I don't think I see any more questions coming in there. So I think if that's everybody, I'll give you a minute back. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Yeah, please feel free to set up a demo, ping us on Slack, or yeah, reach out, send us an email, support@tines.io, sales@tines.io, or just thomas@tines.io if you don't want to yeah, if you want to reach out to me directly. But I really appreciate everybody joining, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was valuable. And sorry for the little glitch at the start. Thanks so much. Bye.